All right, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, we are introducing our brand new segment. We're calling this Brandon's Bullpen. Brandon, we are going to have you break down all our major baseball news we have going on after a wild trade deadline. It seems like there was some major buyers and sellers out there, buddy. Can you go ahead and break this thing down for us on what the hell just happened? Because that was a whirlwind of trades.
I will try my best. I'll start here at home with the Tampa Bay Rays. Anybody saying it was not a fire sale is pretty much deceiving themselves. They pretty much gave up every major player minus Pete Fairbanks and Yandy Diaz. I think that's just because the Yankees were the only ones at that point that were going to give them enough of a haul for them, and they were like, "No, we're not trading you guys in division to our biggest rival." So we kept Pete and Yandy, that's good, but we traded Isaac Paredes to the Cubs. My favorite player. We got Christopher Morel. We got pull up the trade. We got some relievers back in return. We traded Randy Arozarena to the Mariners. We got some prospects back. Basically, prospects galore for the Rays. Traded Jason Adam to the Padres for some prospects. Traded Zach Eflin to the Orioles for some prospects. It was tough seeing a lot of these guys go, and over the course of the weekend working the games, you're just seeing one guy after another and going to the games, working them immediately after the trades was, you could just kind of feel a bit of a gut punch to the Trop. A lot of the fans just kind of having the wind taken out of them. It's hard. I don't know necessarily how well these prospects and some of these players are going to go. Morel seemed to have a great game, great couple games, his first two as a Ray, hitting 2 home runs. We'll see if that kind of levels out the rest of the season. A lot of the people are saying he's got great exit velocity on his swing, so he's got a lot of power. The defense is a little bit lacking. He plays multiple positions, but kind of doesn't have the best glove at any of them. So we'll kind of see what the season holds for some of them. But getting out of Tampa Bay, you got probably the biggest one that a lot of people are talking about, Jazz Chisholm going to the New York Yankees. That's going to be a big move for him, big move for the Yanks. Um, the Tanner Scott, big reliever going to the Padres. That honestly, the Padres, I think, got really good. If I had to pick some winners for the trade deadline, Padres for sure, because you stack the bullpen with Adam and Tanner Scott. Um, you got the Dodgers, who got Ahmed Rosario from the Rays. You got Kevin Kiermaier from the Blue Jays heading over to the West Coast now. Possibly, it's going to be his last season. This probably is going to be his best shot at winning a ring. So we'll see how that goes. Yankees, of course, getting Chisholm. Those would probably be my biggest three winners right there. And then the Mariners, of course, getting Randy. Like they're atop the first place in the AL West. That's such a competitive race out there. So getting a power bat and getting a guy that's a great fielder and Randy is going to be so big for them. So, and then one, I guess you could say underrated, maybe not necessarily underrated, but an interesting stand pat was the Giants, who didn't trade Blake Snell. And last night, dude
Oh,
threw a
no, no.
no. So it's
No, no.
I
yeah, it was a surprising move that I was definitely thinking he would be on the move, but they stood pat and he rewarded them with a no-hitter. So we'll see. Maybe that's the thing that maybe sparks their second half. I'm not sure, but that pretty much sums up most of the trades, at least some of the big ones, some of the biggest winners and losers. But I'm definitely curious. I know, baseball around this time is usually the time when it starts heating up. So, any underrated moves, any underrated signings, or maybe some overrated moves and signings you guys think that kind of caught your eye?
One question I did want to ask you before we
Yeah.
move on, before we get out of your bullpen here.
Yeah.
Why is it that the Marlins always sell their team when they're doing good? They had a good run last year going into the postseason, not
Yep.
doing anything in the postseason, but they got in there and it's been a few years, and then boom, they trade away 80% of their players. Why
Yep.
is that?
Because the Marlins and the Rays happen to share GMs, like front office experience. Peter Bendix, the GM of the Marlins, used to be an assistant at the Rays. He very much has the same mentality of Eric Neander. They're big on, because they both don't have very high payrolls. They both kind of play in a market where they're not making as much right now as maybe some of the other teams, which is kind of surprising considering some of the success that both teams have had. But their mentality has always been, we don't have the biggest payroll. So if we have great players, we're going to sell high on them, try to get a lot of prospects back in return. It sucks, especially being a fan of those teams, because you get attached to these players. And for anybody out there that's saying that, oh, well, these guys were struggling, or, they had a little bit of struggle, or, the guys were going to get back, these prospects, we got like 20 prospects back in return for this guy. Those prospects are not guaranteed. It is a lottery ticket. It is
Yeah, you
not
most likely won't see him for a few years anyways.
exactly. So for everybody out there that's saying, oh, yeah, we got 20 prospects in return. Yeah, for every, again, just an example for the Rays. When we traded Austin Meadows for Isak Paredes, all great player, for Paredes that we got in return. For every Paredes we got, we would also get a guy like Luis Patino and Francisco Mejia for Blake Snell. We kind of prospects are not guaranteed. And I understand the mentality. It's a money ball strategy. It's a money ball mentality. You got to do what you got to do. But for anybody out there that's just going to consistently say, oh, yeah, the front office, they always make the right moves. Oh, yeah, they're always going to, they never fail. Or,
Bullshit.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I understand the method and mentality behind it, but it's one of those things where if you're expecting it to eventually pay off, I don't see it. I think that the key to winning really in any sport is continuity. You need to try to keep these guys together as long as you can. And until they do, I don't see that as a team that's going to win a World Series right now.
Yeah, it's not like the Rays traded a bunch of guys for a bunch of scratch off lottery tickets and just hoping for the best. They got the Mega Millions going on or something.
Yeah.
The interesting thing I thought was kind of interesting about the trade deadline as well was the Blue Jays. If we're staying in the AL East here, so they had a lot of moves in the AL East, and the Blue Jays really, because the reports all were that Biggio, basically all the Biggio, Vladdy, and Bichette was all supposed to be pretty much, they're all going to be gone, and for the most part, they stuck around. And now the reports is that Vladdy's planning on staying in Toronto. So I think Toronto is kind of just up and down. They seem like they have the power, they have the talent, but I'm not sure if it's coaching or what, but they just seem like they cannot put it together. And on paper, they've looked like one of the top teams for the last couple of years, just can't put it together. I'd say for the Red Sox as well, considering it's my team out here, is that I feel like I wish they would have made some more moves to maybe get some more pitching and a little bit more batting. They brought back in Paxton back then. They should never let him go. But they didn't really make too much moves. And that was always the complaint for most fans coming into the season, is they didn't make too many moves. So we'll see what's going on. They did extend Alex Cora. So that was kind of a shocker. I didn't see that one coming. But it's wild, man. Baseball has so many trades, and baseball is definitely interesting with the trade deadline, because it makes so many moves, and baseball just has so many small moves that mean so much later on. You might sign your third string guy, but then all of a sudden now your rotation, now you have 5 second stringers on your team whenever he was like a 4th stringer on another guy, so you can make small moves, and it doesn't always have to be the marquee name to do it. And that's kind of like what the Rays approach is sometimes. And you're completely right that the Rays have been very lucky in getting a lot of good prospects, but it's prospects. You honestly really don't know. And, and so it's kind of interesting too with you're talking about the Trop as well, taking a gut punch out there. So, I mean, I feel bad for the 8 fans that actually go to Rays games. They were all probably gasping for the little bit of air that was left in that building.
Yo, we had 17,000 on a Tuesday night. That's good for us. Y'all need to come down.
That sounds like, what? Honestly, 17,000 on a Tuesday night, that sounds like we should spend a bunch of money and keep the team in Tampa, because it seems to be working so well there.
Well, I think I'm interested in seeing, because they also, though, too, like in some Rays news, they just got the Pinellas County vote as well to, get the building the new stadium in St. Pete. Hopefully that and all the construction and everything that they're doing ends up paying off, because, for me, I'm always going to be on the pro Tampa side. I live in Lakeland. It would be a shorter drive. And I think that Tampa is just a bit of a bigger market. But I hope that everything that the Rays and St. Pete are selling, I hope that it pays off. Because I don't want this team in 10 years to still have the same attendance issues, still have the same payroll issues, and then they're gone. I will be more than happy in 10 years if this team, if this city, we're averaging 25,000 a night. We've got like middle of the pack in payroll, which would be fantastic for us. If we can be middle of the pack, with the talent and the ability for our front office and the eye that our scouts have to be able to acquire these players, we would be straight up balling. Every single year, we'd have no issue. But I hope that I'm proven wrong. I really do, and I have no problem if we're 10 years down the road, we got a couple World Series titles, we got like Christopher Morel's like MVP, all this other stuff. Like, I'm like, yo, hey, Give me that spoon. I'm gonna eat my words. I'm more than happy to do that because then that means this team's gonna stay.